Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to EUW ChallengerSeries number 17 with Pulse eSports and MeetYourMakers in the second best of 3 today. I am Pulse and I am joined by Stress, and I'm sure we're going to get confused over the team and my name.
I'm sure we will at some point, but I'm glad to be casting with you once again. We had a great weekend of casting together, so continuing on where we left off yesterday, and I believe you were in the picks and bans screen already. I'm slightly behind on the stream, so why don't you take us through the first few bans that are coming out?
Yeah, swapping it up from over the weekend where we had the role reversal, but now we've got the ban champions being Gragas, Renex and Leona, Heimerdinger and Yasuo, just waiting on the last ban out here.
A little surprised by the Heimerdinger, not so surprised by the Yasuo there. We've seen Yasuo a couple of times. I believe MYM tried to run it in the LCS qualifiers. I know they had Yasuo in one of the games that we casted from the Scan Invitational. Didn't have the biggest amount of impact on that game as MYM would. Well, they did advance actually, so maybe I'm just remembering a very long weekend of games slightly wrong.
It all merges into one after a while. We did cast for a very long time, but Yasuo did have an effect on the game. It wasn't maybe the biggest threat, but it is a curveball and something that they just didn't want to really face against MYM, since they have had kind of practice with it and Pulse maybe have not in competitive games. So we're just waiting on the picks. We've got another 20 seconds left until MeetYourMakers lock in their first pick. Mundo is open, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see that this game.
Yeah, I was going to say Shyvana seems to be the last ban out here from Pulse a little while back. So Mundo available. There are a couple of other picks. Annie for once has actually found herself available. That's not too often that we see Annie go through these days. So there are a couple of options here for both teams. And some of those stronger picks will be let through for Pulse as well. So they've got to decide what they want MYM to take.
Okay, so Elise has been picked up by MeetYourMakers, and then in response, Mundo and Vi from Pulse eSports, which is no real small surprise.
Not a surprise at all. We saw a lot of Mundo and Vi all weekend, and Elise, all three very commonly picked champions. So we talked about this over the weekend. If you guys didn't, in fact, tune into the Scan Invitational, when you pick Vi, a very, very common counter pick to Vi is Kayle. Would not be surprised for MYM to maybe even have locked it in already, or perhaps it is yet to come.
I'm sure they're thinking about it. They haven't actually hovered over anything, but we did see that almost every game Vi was picked first, Kayle in response, and then eventually I think in one of the final games Kayle was finally banned out, so they could pick Vi in safety. Kassadin is actually being hovered over with 10 seconds remaining.
Now, we did see Kassadin once over the weekend. In fact, twice. 2 games we saw Kassadin. Once in the Grand Finals, in the very final game, Ocelot first picked Kassadin and got countered by Riven. Riven's still available, so it means if they do commit to that Kassadin, as I said, I'm a little bit behind the stream. If they do indeed commit, there are a couple of counters that are open. Ziggs as well. Well, no, sorry, Ziggs is a counter to Riven. I'm getting my champions confused.
Yeah, indeed, and Ocelot did not fare too well. It was, I think, 3 kills by himself, the mid laner picked up against Ocelot, and the Kassadin was never really able to get rolling. So being picked so early into the picking phase is very possible Pulse will just bring out something that tries to shut that lane down, and Ashe is being kind of hovered over at the moment. Ashe is not a pick we've seen for a very long time, considering most of the bottom lane picks are like Lucian, Caitlyn, which is basically everything, because Caitlyn is just in response to Lucian. Sivir makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I believe they've changed. Have they actually locked a Sivir in?
They have.
Okay, they've locked Sivir in, so we can talk a little bit about Sivir. Has immense wave pushing and quite a bit of harass these days, so we'll talk about that as we head through the game. Now, on my screen, we've got a hover over of Kha'Zix. Have they locked that in yet?
They have. They've locked in the Kha'Zix and locked in the Sivir.
Okay, so Kha'Zix, I have to assume here is going to go in the mid lane, which is a little bit of a return for Kha'Zix. We don't see Kha'Zix in the mid lane that much anymore. From time to time we do, but over the weekend we saw JWoww playing Kha'Zix up in the top lane, Ku playing in the jungle. So very versatile champion, has the same role in all 3 positions, but you know, it is a little bit different to see him here in the middle. I believe we actually saw Kha'Zix in one of today's games in the first best of 3 in the mid lane, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't quite catch them, but I heard them discussing it.
Yeah, so the final two picks will be Jax and also Fresh to join Lucian in the bottom lane, and because Sivir was also picked up, Lulu will be going alongside that, which was a little bit of a mismatch, because we don't always see like a long-range pokey type of support with like a brawly engaged support like Sivir, but still brings that utility to the composition. And Jax, over kind of the last couple like end of the games we were casting in the Scan Invitational, and like today, we're seeing more Jax come out.
Yeah, it's a champion that kind of started to fall off a little bit with the change of the meta when people were playing a lot of the same three champions every game. That Jax, you have to get into the late game to end up scaling quite well against. So that's the aim here from MYM. They want to get into the late game with that Jax and Kassadin, and it just means if they get there, it's going to be very difficult to stop them. It looks like Pulse Esports are going to have to put them very far behind at the beginning of this game to make sure that those late game champions don't really get rolling.
Okay, so we're going to give that some more thought, but as we jump into the delay time, we're going to jump to a quick commercial break, and when we get back, we'll be in the first game of the second best of three between Pulse Esports and MeetYourMakers. We'll see you soon, guys.
Those nights when we were younger and we would never sleep. So let's forget about tomorrow and live for tonight while we're free. Touch the sky. Tonight we're coming alive. the sky. Tonight we're coming alive. From the dust we will awaken, and life will fill our veins. But these are the moments that we live for. I can keep it inside of me. Touch the sky. Tonight we're coming alive. Touch the sky. Tonight we're coming alive.
Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to EUW ChallengerSeries number 17 with the second best of three as my producer tries to put me off while I'm doing my intro. Pulse eSports and MeetYourMakers. I'm going to rapidly transition to stress. How's it going, man?
I didn't hear anything of the sort. I think you're going crazy here, Pulse. However, people that aren't going crazy are MIM because they're looking to go aggressive and get an early lead on this one. We talked about how their team composition kind of scales a little bit better, and as we go through that, Pulse actually are looking aggressive as well. So these teams won't meet each other for the initial invades, but we'll have to watch which way they come back out of the opposition jungle because there aren't a lot of wards out yet.
Indeed, in fact, there are no wards out yet, and we're just going to see if they do walk up to MeetYourMakers and try and re-enter their jungle that way, or just try and fan out and maybe catch one of them as they try and walk around. But I am glad that MeetYourMakers are in high spirits, they're spamming out these emotes.
Yeah, and Pulse look like they're going to take the safe route. Neither team knows where the other are, so it's just one of these times where you got to be careful moving between jungle areas. You can see Pulse even cleavering their own blue buff, that bush around there, so making sure that they're safe, but MYM are hanging around.
Well, Pulse are definitely right in that there is an invade, but they don't know exactly where it's gonna be. Kickers is walking around the corner. Hook comes through. They will follow up. That's first blood picked up by Lucian.
And that's a really good start here by MYM. They secure the jungle of Vi, and we've already talked about how Vi doesn't trade well in the early game in the jungle. Trades even worse 1v4, but that's not really the point. However, without a blue buff, she's going to be experience down, and it's going to give Makata even more ability to start trading with Vi when they do meet each other in the jungle.
Indeed, and Makla's going to be very happy with that first blood. Not going to be able to utilize the gold, but is going to be able to utilize the experience. That level 2 first might be something that Libby can follow up on, but either way, that's going to give him a nice spike in gold and a spike in items when he decides to first go back.
Yeah, level 2 will be very important for that Thresh lane because it means that they're going to be able to catch out Woolita before Woolita has the spell shield available. So you can see they're already trying to just push the wave. Libic is auto-attacking down the spellcaster minions. They hook onto Elendix.
Yeah, and we'll follow up with the Flay coming forwards. Makla's still following down with the auto-attacks. Will dash out of the slow using Relentless Pursuit and just shove Elendix back to his turret.
Good lane pressure out of MYM already in that bottom lane, and that really is what they need to do here because Sivir is going to shove very quickly and might be caught.
And again, the Flay comes forwards. Woolite has used his barrier on top of Elendix's help picks, but will get out and really not in good shape.
Not good shape at all. That's not where you want to be with your duo lane, having to pretty much recall soon. I mean, Woolet is only level 1, and with the Doran's Blade start, only has that 1 health potion, so relying on the shielding and the lower health regeneration that they'll get from that lifesteal. But it's just a case that now they're going to require Kikis down in this bottom lane, and Kikis is already behind.
Indeed, he can't afford to try and just sit in these lanes and try and make sure they can farm. When he needs to get his own farm, he needs to get to the stage where he can at least gank, and he's only just hit level 3, which is generally the area you have all your skills and can start ganking, but he has to immediately go back because he's out of potions.
And the effect this is having on the jungle is going to affect the rest of the lanes, as you would expect. Normally you try to shut down a Kassadin and Jax in the early game to make sure they never get to the point where they can start dueling people, because both champions will want to dive the backline and assassinate as fast as they possibly can, and without jungle pressure in those lanes, they're going to have a little bit of an easier time farming up and getting to the point where they have their core items to be able to start having an effect on team fights.
Yeah, and unless Chuyu or Nick completely outplay their opponent, they will scale fairly similarly, so it shouldn't make a huge difference because they will both have a champion who is super strong at assassinating the back line. Kikis is now going to try and pick up this kill in mid lane, but is wasting a lot of time until he can actually get this gank to happen, but pre-6 Caston is his weakest point, so we're actually looking towards bot lane. Cocoon comes across, does not land onto Warlight. Spell Shield will block the Flaze, so maybe Lennox will drop first, but they are turning attention to Warlight, drops him with a Light Slinger, and have also broken the turret aggro, so a very surgically clean kill in the bot lane. Nick and Chuyu are training in the mid, but I'm not going to go all in on that.
Yeah, Livic just managed to avoid taking one more tower shot, otherwise it would have been a 1-for-1 trade, but this is big pressure being applied to the bottom lane. You can see just how low Livic is, but they know they can stay to push onto that tower. No chance of getting it anytime soon, but the amount of pressure they're exerting in that lane is kind of opening up that dragon area in future. If they can continue to keep Lulu and Sivir fairly far back in lane, they might be able to get it.
And that all rippled from the level 1. Chuyu has flashed out. Kickers will be taking a couple tower shots. Nick actually jumps into the tower and just takes a tower shot, because that's what happens when you take tower aggro.
Not sure 760 was communicating all that well with Kikis right there. If both had gone in, maybe you could see that that might have been okay to trade there, but it's not good to just give away kills. But Joki's in the top lane is going to get killed by the Ignite. Kubon just gets out with enough health.
Yeah, and that is how you go for a tower dive, but Kubon's going to be quite happy with that result. He's going to pick up this extra farm, shove it into his tower, so Mundo will lose some of that vital experience and gold. But in that mid lane, Nick already a kill down, will be picking up 2 longswords. Again, could go for a third a little later, but Caston picking up an early kill is horrific either way, because they're both super strong scaling mid laners.
I'm going to put myself out there again. Now, on the weekend, for those of you that were watching, would have seen Ku's faux pas by selecting a Brutalizer in the jungle. This time, it's mid lane Kha'Zix, so I'm guessing it will go towards that Brutalizer that is standard. Oh, hook lands in the bottom.
Indeed, just at the very tip, following after breaking the spell shield using Ardent Blaze, following with the Light Slinger and the auto attacks, flash forwards will result in another kill for Makler.
MYM at 5-0 are looking incredibly confident. They're trying to get to, well, sorry, they're forcing Pulse to try and get anything they can from their lanes, but it's resulted in kills across the board. All lanes have benefited from those kills, and it's going to open up the dragon. As you can see, Makata's starting it off. Here comes Libic for the assist. They will get this dragon.
We've seen a lot of very early objectives from a lot of teams in the Scan Invitational, and looks like it's going to be no different in the EUW ChallengerSeries number 17, with Makata picking up the Elise and indeed the dragon.
And that is a good spike of gold, and they have the timer on this blue from stealing it earlier, and that would be bad news for Kikis if he lost another one of his buffs. There's a lot of activity down in the bottom side of this jungle. Nick 760 is around. Looks like Pulse aren't too willing to fight, though.
They currently split, and this 3-man stack just allowing Lucian to 1 versus 2 in that bottom lane is actually working out fairly well. The death sentence will land. The culling will also clip Elendix. Chuyu over the wall will land the Null Sphere and the follow from Livic. It should be enough, but Kickers has come in for the counter gag. Elendix will fall to the Force Pulse, and Kickers knocked back with Flay, jumping back to his turret. Chuyu following after with Rift Walk. Not quite enough damage to secure that kill. Mokata jumps back onto Woolite, dodging out of the Boomerang Blade, but this has allowed Nick to come into the bottom lane, who has been silenced. He jukes out of the way of his follow-up using Leap, and that was the teleport coming down, meaning the Kickers will follow up using Assault and Battery. Again, no kills have quite come down. Makler drops low, but Nick unable to really get the full damage he wants to, and will land the final voice spikes before going back to farming.
The silence from Chuyu was so very important there. It just bought enough time to get the juke, so 760 jumped into the bush right as they managed to rotate around out of it and saved a life that probably would have rotated in another death perhaps because of the resets out of Kha'Zix. So a very important moment there in that team fight to make sure that Kha'Zix wasn't able to get that initial kill.
Yeah, and you can really see Pulse digging in deep with the triple Doran's Blade pickup from Sivir right here, which is basically, I need to survive and try and be relevant in the middle game using this very efficient build, but it's a big investment because that does not transition well into the late game. It's not item efficient, but for the gold that he has, well, I can't really go for anything else.
I just wanted to check though on Nick 760's upgrade for the evolution. It is in fact in Leap. So one kill there would have been huge because he would have got the reset. You know, some players do choose different upgrades on Kha'Zix. There have been a couple of different schools of thought. So very, very important to shut Kha'Zix out of these fights as soon as possible.
Yeah, they are giving themselves the opportunity to kind of snowball in these fights, and Leap Evolution first will allow them to do that, but he just doesn't quite have the damage. Kubum is really just punting Jokies around, and the Cleaver will just show Mundo is not very happy with that lane circumstance, but Chuyu has found himself Kickers, and Mukata also following after Force Pulse and the Null Sphere, jumps in with Repel and the Venomous Bite, sinking those fangs in, will secure another kill in the jungle.
And another buff secured here by MYM. They have full control of this game, only dropping one kill. That's really the only thing they've let go to Pulse Esports here. They have a good gold lead already and a bit of a support fight over wards here. But I wonder whether Libic will be able to hook on towards Elendix or whether he'll get two wards. Does get a second ward, so the money pink ward coming out here from Libic.
Outplayed, and Makler will still be 1 versus 2, but level 7 versus a level 5 Warlight means he can't really all-in Makler even if he had the opportunity using On the Hunt. So right now Pulse, the only thing they have going for them is they are picking up some of their buffs, but most of them are being taken away by MeetYourMakers. So with the next Dragon we might see them try and just attempt a team fight, but 6k behind at 11 minutes is catastrophic.
And Jax already having an advantage over Dr. Mundo is not a good sign for Pulse Esports as Nick 760 goes aggressive onto Chuyu, but Chuyu should be able to get out of this one as he silences Nick. We've already seen that before. A lot of activity in the bottom lane, but Jax being ahead on Mundo already is a bad sign because Jax will scale better and better into this game and start to be able to duel anybody on the map that he wants. That is not what Pulse Esports want to happen, and surely they got to start dealing with that soon.
Indeed, and Kubon has actually decided to just sit in the middle lane because tops down, Munda's going to attempt to freeze and try and get himself back up to speed so he can just stop Jax from going any further. But that leeway will allow Jax to move into different lanes, try and push down more towers and pick up all these outer turrets. Warlight has been caught, or maybe it will be the bottom lane. In fact, both these guys are going to back off, both kind of spooked by the sign of these junglers.
And, MYM will continue this push on towards the bottom lane. Mid, Nick 760 forced to leap out over the wall, but again Jax finds himself at a tower, and that also satisfying sound of Jax wailing away means that MYM will take 2 turrets across the map here.
They will. I mean, Jokies has reacted and will push them away. Warlight gets flayed backwards. Death Sentence lands onto Elendix. Maybe not quite the right target, but still going to chunk him down to 40%. Makler coming in from around the side with Kickers in hot pursuit, but Gonna try and initiate on this one. It appears with Volt Breaker. Mokata down to about 25% HP. Nick flashes up red in the middle lane, but turning attention to bot lane. Assault and Battery comes down. Repel comes up. He's gonna have to come back down at some point. Woolite is below 10%. And now the cleanup crew of Chu-Yu picks up another Light Slinger. That passive secures yet another kill. Jokis has teleported it only to instantly die, as Kuban also shows up for the fun.
The teleport instantly, as Mundo appeared, he instantly got stunned out by the counter-strike, so just not the best use of teleport there, as the team fight was already in progress. MYM full control, 11-2, and it's going to be very difficult for Pulse now. It's a very uphill struggle.
It is, and generally you would say, kind of at the 30-minute mark, oh, it doesn't seem like this game is going very well. Maybe they should be looking towards the second game. It's 13 minutes in, anything can happen, but against this huge goal deficit, even higher than the first couple games we saw today, Stress, of almost 10k, indeed, this Dragon will bring it to that discrepancy between the goal totals.
I mean, you can see the difference in the gold and the teams by the unorthodox build here from Chu-Yu in the middle lane. He's gone towards the core of Kassadin, where you pick up the tier, pick up the catalyst to make Rod of Ages, but he's also got a Haunting Guise, which is not all that common onto Kassadin. Yes, it'll give him that extra health to be able to survive against Kha'Zix, but it's by no means standard on the champion, so a little bit surprising to have already finished a Haunting Guise and an Archangel staff here at 14 minutes into the game.
They have accelerated the game into rocket speed, so they are going to be higher level than they usually would, so I guess he's kind of playing up the base damages of the skill, which is usually the reason you would pick up a Haunting Guise. For example, you do that on Elise because her base damages are amazing, and talking about Elise, Mokata will go into his Repel. Nick has currently been silenced, still trying to get that kill. He will get it, and the leap, but the culling across the wall will secure the kill in return.
I think Mackler actually forgot he had Ardent Blaze available then, so ended up using the culling, but a kill is a kill nonetheless. Using the culling for a kill is very worth it for Mackler. Just wanted to make sure he got that. But MYM now at 12-3. You can see that Kha'Zix is actually doing a good job of farming, but he's under so much pressure in these team fights, and without the initial damage there, he's not able to get any resets to clean up, and it means every time he commits, he's not getting anything. 1 kill and no assists for 2 deaths is not really where you want a Kha'Zix, but it's not entirely his fault.
Yeah, Jokis has found himself caught in the top lane. He's not really going to survive for too long with Kuban, and the burst damage from Chu-Yu going to be wailing on top of him. So, red buff has spawned, and it just looks like MYM going to make the smart decision of just trying to push Kickers away from it again. Jumps forwards using Rift Walk, turned into a scroll momentarily. Wildgrove using himself to zone them away. Kha'Zix cannot even duel Kuban at this stage, already with the Blaze of Rune King and 3 kills under his belt.
There's no trying about that. They're just going to walk in and take the red. You can see that Kuban just pretty much jumped on Nick 760 and just killed him, almost. He put him down to 1 auto attack away from picking up the kill there. They rotate around to mid, and this is all because of that really early start in the game. There was no way of Vi being able to get back into this one after dying very early, and then the amount of pressure from bottom.
Now that's quite painful. A single combination to you will bring Woolite below 25% HP. Mokata will be on the front lines, and the Assault and Bash used by Kickers. They just cannot secure a kill. Mokata might have to be the sacrificial lamb as he will retreat to the Wolves, burning a lot of summoners in the process, but the 1-for-1 or the 1-for-0 trade might be the cleanup turn that they want. Chu-Yu on very low mana out of the blue buff, so Nick could look to sweep up. Mackler jumping over the wall. Jokis has been caught. Culling will pick up another kill, resetting Relentless Pursuit.
And Woolite actually just stood still. As soon as he knew that he had been found out by Mackler, Flash came forward there into Ardent Blaze. Didn't pick it up that time as the Hex Drinker got popped, but that time Mackler just kind of danced around a little bit with Woolite before he picked up the kill. So Pulse know the story here. It's not looking good in this first game, but we are in a best of 3, so it doesn't mean that everything is over here for Pulse, but not sure how much longer this one can go on.
Absolutely. It doesn't tell the tale of the rest of the series, but I think this game is almost up. The curtains are falling 15-4. 12k advances and 5 towers already at 17 minutes. It's not even possible to surrender. There is a chance to come back. Kha'Zix is actually not doing too badly. 1-2 and 1 will be a scoreline. Picking up the Brutalizer and the Hexdrinker, which we did see save his life previously. But Jax is going to become an issue at some point, which they've kind of just been putting their head in the sand and hoping it will go away. So hopefully it will, but I think Jax is quite happy to carry on pushing in the top lane.
Well, we've already seen one rage quit in today's game, so maybe we'll see another, but Chuyu goes aggressive. Yeah,
Nick not quite going to pick up another kill, so maybe they'll just let them get a quadra and then steal it away from Nick and just hope they rage quit. But that seems to be their hope at this stage, and the Kicker's almost on the receiving end of a hug and the cocoon.
I mean, at this point, you could ignore the fact that Sivir was 6-0 and just look at the CS difference between the two AD carries to see the story of this game. There was so much pressure from the very beginning of the game onto Wooliter and Elendix because of the experience gained from the kill and the assist. Chuyu goes aggressive again.
And will be assault and batteries. He just stands there and takes it. He knows when he's being caught out. Well, the tower will be traded for his life. A shutdown in the tower. The Pulse will take everything they can, and the golems will also be taken. So the game has definitely rippled off of that level 1. And indeed, the first kill onto that Caston has just allowed them to snowball. This is always going to be a very snowbally game with the type of champions picked up here, Stress.
But you wouldn't really expect it to be in the favour of MYM when you just look at the 5v5 champion lists, because champions such as Kassadin and Jax, as we said, don't really reach their peak until later into the game, and Pulse are trying to do something here to force a fight, but it's not going to go well.
Yeah, they're going to sweep the minion wave first, and Wooliter has come in from the side. Lucian joins his allies. Kubon will eventually be taken down by the tag team of Jokeys and Nick. Kicker's going to be retreating as Chuyu takes him down, Super Mario's him with the Rift Walk, and Jokeys just trying to slow them down. 3 versus 2, and well, Lucian will finally react, flash over the wall, and the jump from Nick. Going to try and escape with their lives. Mukata heading around the side. Going to try and land the cocoon in 4 seconds, but looks like Jokeys is just going to take it for the team.
And without wanting to be too anticlimactic, Pulse had to do something there. They were shoving onto a turret to try and get any objective that they could, but they're 14,000 gold down as we reach the 20-minute mark, and you have to think that for morale's sake, this one may indeed start zooming over to that Nexus any second now, as I think Pulse might be wanting to just head into game number 2, you would imagine.
Yeah, it wouldn't be surprising as Baron is going to fall at 20 minutes, which is comparably quite soon in the game. 3-1 and 2 for Jax, already on his way to the Trinity Force, and doesn't even want to go for a defensive boot item. He's gone for Home Guard Sork boots.
Looks like Pulse want to play this one out, so good credit to Pulse to realise that they're only in game number 1, so they can still come back into this and end up taking the series 2-0. It's a big ask, but taking the Dragon would be the start of the road there, so a Dragon would go a little bit of the way, but it's kind of like getting a bucket if you're in an ocean to try and bail out.
It is, and when you're in that ocean, one of your members has just gone overboard, so there we go.
Yeah, not the best. You may have found Elendix as well. Elendix won't survive too much longer. Rift Walk does a massive amount of damage, and he's not getting out of there alive.
No, the shark in the ocean will be Chuyu, sitting in that river, picking up everyone he wants, and Kubon's gonna go 1 versus 2. Nick instantly dies, and Jokeys does not want to go toe-to-toe with a Jax, no matter what HP he's on. He's gonna slowly grind him down. Actually, some nice micromanagement, just keeping away from auto-attack range while landing the cleavers, and Jokeys will pick up that kill.
Yeah, Kubon took a little bit too much time there. He turned around and picked up the red buff in between killing Nick 760 and then attempting to go for Jokeys, and it bought enough time for Vi to head over. So a little bit of overconfidence there out of Jax, but Kubon is still very strong in the fact that he actually could have 2v1'd that if he had chosen to, you know, get rid of the red.
Indeed, and he has picked up a Sheen on top of that phage, and maybe if he'd gone for a smarter choice in boots instead of the full damage item, maybe he would have been able to 1 versus 2. But Sork picks on Jax aren't actually terrible, since a large portion of Jax's damage is actually magic damage from the Empower, the Leap, and not the Counter-Strike, but the rest of it is actually quite significant.
Yeah, not the most straightforward thing, but the hook has landed onto Jokies.
Yeah, Jokies is not usually the target you would want to jump on, but the defensive wild growth has been used by Elendix.
That's a key summoner there as well, because they haven't got a lot of health, and the re-engagement comes after it fades.
Yeah, Culling comes through, and that will be an instant kill for Chuyu. They will be jumping underneath that turret. Finally, Mundo will fall. Elendix going into the sanctuary of his double Nexus turrets, but the middle inhibitor is sure to fall very quickly, as those Spirelings are going to be tanking up the aggro.
Chuyu having a bit of fun there with 760 behind the inhibitor, and they will take the inhibitor down, and while they probably can't push on straight away without picking off 1 or 2 members here, they are going to try it. The death time is pretty low, but look at how much damage Jax is doing to the turret. I take my words back, they will push on.
Yeah, they're going to take both those Nexus turrets, and this might be the final fight. The last chance saloon for Pulse to come back into it. Already a member down, and Sivir has dropped into the Death Chamber, which is very close indeed to the Nexus. And in fact, Kubon doesn't even care about anyone. He's just going to carry on whacking down the Nexus, and that'll be the first game, and GG being called for MeetYourMakers against Pulse.
A very convincing performance there out of MeetYourMakers, and that's really what you'd expect of a team that got oh so close to making it to LCS once again after being an LCS team during the 2013 season. So looking to continue their form from this weekend and LCS.
Yeah, so we are going to jump to a quick commercial break, and when we get back, it'll be in the second game of this best of 3 series between Pulse eSports and MeetYourMakers. We'll see you soon.